fake news is real out there, and hopefully you guys are the real deal, you know, like the memes of destruction.
We just have to keep going, but that doesn't mean we should be silly about things. We need to be smart. Went to a Professor Peterson event a few days ago. I told him he was a pretty good wizard, a person who changes the world around them via verbal and semantic components, i.e. their words and actions. Well, the memes of destruction, which is a great username. That's really nerdy, but I approve.
How's it going, memes?
Hey, memes, you're on the show now. Audio podcast is over.
I had to mute a stream that I still had up. My apologies, but hey guys, what's going on?
Not much.
Just having a piss and moan fest. I'm trying to come up with new ways to say Greta Rust Butt.
I believe it's Thunberg.
I don't care. Is the point? She hasn't earned that level of consideration from me.
We had a guy in our shop. He was a new guy, and one of the other guys that worked in our shop on his first day, he kept calling the guy Pumpkin, and everyone was like, "Why are you calling him Pumpkin?" Because I don't give a fuck what his name is.
Is said individual still employed there?
No, none of them are. Actually, no. Only two people who worked there when I worked there are still there.
Okay. Well, see, we had a similar thing in the job where I work, where me and a coworker who were buddies, sort of screwing with the new guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we were like, "You're still at new guy status. You don't get to whatever yet." He's like, "What do you mean?" Like, well, it's you go from new guy, then after you're new guy, you're just some fucker, and from that, we elevate you to half-ass.
I mean, that's not necessarily unfair in that. I mean, everyone starts out as a noob once in a while, depending on what it is.
Well, yeah, exactly, and that's we're just trying to give them the an entertaining rundown of you don't get to do this thing yet because you're not at that level.
Yeah.
So the goal is to level up.
Yeah,
of course.
Basically,
gamifying.
So did you have something specific you wanted to call in about? We've never actually had someone call into the show before, so this is a new experience for us.
Oh, well, I guess I am popping the proverbial cherry. My apologies for my misogyny. But apparently, here's the thing. I do have to take some issue with this, and
fun.
I do think one of the issues that we do run into over the whole climate change debate, if that's what we want to call it, is that many of my let's say comrades on the left, and I will cite ex-Mrs. Memes as a source on this because she's worked a number of years as a social worker and was or is an internationally certified board behavior analyst. And she agreed with me that many on the left are terrible salespeople.
Yeah.
And because the thing is, I've seen far too many smart folks in the world, and of the two things, their top two things, climate change is often one of them. And the reason being, because if you look at, I believe it's the R3 or the third, basically the catastrophic model, we don't know. We don't have enough historically accurate data, as well as basically we've been measuring this stuff for a blip in time, to truly know. But the fact that it's a possibility, I think it completely scares the bejesus out of them to the point where sometimes they'll, let's say, we're not going to be able to eat meat anymore, or New York will be completely underwater by this date. So they end up overselling and under-delivering.
Yeah.
I will agree with that because, they'd get a lot more respect, I think, if they just come out and say, you know what, we don't know. We think there might be a problem, and we need to study it to make that determination.
The problem
if they
is,
would say something like that, it'd be nothing. It'd be fine.
If they did that, though, they would lose their control. They'd lose their power.
Well,
they
lose their funding.
Well, and because leftism is a cult, they have to be that omniscient, omnipotent, ultra intelligent, completely perfect parent figure.
Well, yes.
I mean, is it really, sorry to cut you off, Mitch, but is it really that, or is it that they think they're doing what they believe to be right, and basically most of the folks they know and trust are kind of going in that direction, so they tend to push in that direction.
I think the people toward the top of the pyramid know it's a scam, and the people on the lower half of the pyramid are more likely to be people who are actually following their conscience.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with Mitch. I don't think that they all I don't think that the people in charge are true believers. I think they're opportunistic.
Right. And I think that the people who are not in charge are in that situation where they're in a cult but don't realize they're in a cult.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of it comes down to, oh, now we got a Falcon in the queue up there as well.
Oh, right on.
Wow.
But essentially, here's the thing: there are those that actually truly care, and I base this off of my experience when I was actually getting my last iPhone, because I like Apple and the way it interacts.
Shame on you.
It's yes, I pay more, but hey, my last MacBook lasted 7 years. That's 3 times longer than any laptop I had. But then again, I do frequent websites I probably shouldn't.
Well,
but,
hey, my iMac is getting memory bleeds like crazy from browsers and Discord. I have to shut down my computer about 2 to 3 times a day because it keeps freezing up.
Have you cleaned it out with air?
Yes, I have. Actually, no, I used a vacuum because it's an iMac, and they said not to spray air in because it pushes it inside.
Don't blow. You must suck.
Yes, exactly. But anyway, I interrupted you. I apologize.
Oh, no worries. But I think one of the big things that we have, I lost my point. What the heck was I talking about?
We were talking about the last thing I said was about the people on top knowing it's a scam. The people on the bottom.
Okay, yeah. The way it. I mean, isn't that just like a lot of political wedge issues? Because
yes, it is.
Rather than actually compromising, if you compromise, now you're actually focusing resources on solving problems rather than funding money to fight for something, to spite other people or raise rhetoric. I don't know.
Well, that's my point about the blue energy thing.
All I know is Mark Dice is selling "I Love Global Warming" T-shirts. And I'm like, that just seems to be kind of just trying to rub the face into it on a wedge issue. And don't get me, dude, this happens on all sides and everything. I mean, President Trump freaking, he raised like $1 million for selling Sharpies?
Yeah,
something like that. But there is an argument to be said that global warming could potentially be better, both for weather and food for the human population. One of the co-founders of Greenpeace is a climate scientist. And he has actually come out and said that there's no such thing as a climatologist. It's not a thing. He's an atmospheric meteorologist, I think is his actual degree. And he said that global warming, he said, is probably happening. It's almost certainly not man-made, but it's also a good thing. If the poles warm by 5 degrees, the equator's going to warm by 1. And what that does is it means that you have longer growing seasons in places like Canada. You have more rain in places like the Sahara Desert, so they can potentially become fertile again and you can grow food. As we have a growing population and more need for more food, we have more need for more usable land to grow that food. And the change in the climate would actually facilitate that. And then you would have the more evaporation from the ocean, which causes the rain, which would eventually go into a cycle and cool it back down again. That's his theory and his positioning on it, and he's been saying this for decades at this point.
What do you say we bring Falcon in on this discussion too?
Yeah, let's do that.
Make it a force. All right.
So hey Falcon, how you doing, bud?
Hey Falcon.
Hey Sam.
Well, just while he's sorting his mic out, I just had 2 quick points on that. And just to finish up, I remember my little story from the Apple Store. I actually ran into an individual whom was working with a national, maybe even global climate group, and they did have a location here in Massachusetts as well. But their main goal was actually to have a actual decent conversation, kind of like we're having right now about it, and trying to avoid a lot of the screaming and yelling. The issue is, since they're not really screaming and yelling, well, we all know the squeaky wheel tends to get the grease.
Mhm.
The other thing going on what you were just saying, Arthur, there is, and this is something that I took from Falcon would know, our buddy MC, who seems to share a similar archetype in some ways with our buddy Mitch here, in my opinion. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong,
We'll
but
see.
one of the things that he said is basically in the worst case scenario, you could have the oceans, basically if the polar ice caps melt, the oceans, he said, well, they'd only rise 3 or 4 feet. Okay, in my mind, now we're adding 3 or 4 feet to the entire oceans of the world. Now we're adding a lot more of a particular element in a particular form to the system that is Earth as we know it. So if all of a sudden you have a 15-foot storm surge, it's likely going to be more than 3 or 4 feet coming in. So you're adding a lot more energy. And he said, well, where would the evidence be? He said the evidence would be if the Earth is greening. Come to find out, when I was just perusing on Facebook, all of a sudden somebody showed an article and a little picture, and it showed a 15-year gap between Asia. So it shows India and China 15 years ago and shows them now. And they're getting a lot greener.
Yeah.
So that would support the hypothesis that we are seeing more water enter the system. And as you said, in some ways that could be very good. That could lead to the greening of the Earth. While at the same time, we are adding a very fluid component into our ecosystems, and we are seeing like record high temperatures and everything. I mean, it's just we are starting to see some of the things that folks were predicting many years ago. Perhaps they were off by 30 or 40 years, because when you're talking the history of the Earth, it's to make exact predictions can be a little difficult.
Right. Well, and to be fair, I mean, all the places
so
that
a
are.
furry,
Wait, what?
so a furry just agreed. A
Scaly.
furry agreed with an old man.
You lost me.
Falcon, I could barely make that out.
Yeah, you're pretty quiet.
Okay, guys, a scaly, I was corrected, agreed with an old man.
Yes.
Okay.
MC's 56.
He's
screw
making
with
a
him.
joke. He's making a joke about our friend who is apparently AARP age now, as well as myself being a member of the greater furry community.
The question I'm curious about though is, let's say worst case scenario, all of those cities end up being underwater. What's the loss?
I think the law becomes Vegas's wine country.
Yeah, I mean,
Actually,
I wouldn't mind some
Vegas-
Vegas beachfront property. Like I don't know what's good near the ocean.
Just because California's been in debt since the 90s doesn't mean we should banish it to the ocean. They're still
well,
Americans.
actually, you would lose very, very little land in North America. Now, in the Caribbean, you'd lose a tremendous amount of land. Majority of the Bahamas would barely be underwater, but we wouldn't lose that much land. Now,
So we'd have more climate refugees.
We'd have. I mean, we'd lose the coastal cities. You've got like New York and Washington D.C. and Baltimore
Oh, yeah.
and Boston. I mean, what's the
I like
loss, really?
Boston.
But guys,
I don't know. I mean, I'm from Denver. You guys kind of screwed up our chance at winning the World Series. So screw Boston.
You would see Boston underwater just because you pick strategic territory and the wrong team to follow.
Actually, I don't follow
Well,
any of
guys.
the sports ball. I just get a kick. Actually, it's because I had a friend who I wanted to be a girlfriend who moved out to Boston. So fuck Boston.
It
What
all
were you
makes
saying
sense.
there, Falcon?
There is some good thing about this whole ice cap starting melting a good bit thing. The Northwest Passage is finally starting to open up, so we might have freighters and super tankers going around Canada to get to Europe.
Yeah, and
So we go on.
I've also heard stories of records of Viking settlements in Antarctica, like year-round Viking settlements with farms and shit. So it's not like this is new.
Well,
That's
and if
interesting.
Antarctica lost, let's say Antarctica for whatever reason lost its ice, how much more land would we then be able to farm?
Yeah.
How
Well,
much
and
more
same
land
in
would we
Russia.
have to fight over?
Yeah.
And the same thing over in like Russia. We have a absolutely horrendous amount. I don't think horrendous would be the right word. We had more land to farm than we know what to do with.
Wasn't there a biological weapons factory that had a blowout in Siberia?
No, that was a nuclear power plant.
Oh, well, that's
Well,
much better.
that wasn't in
That
China.
was
That wasn't Siberia. That was Chernobyl.
Yeah, it was the Chernobyl nuclear power station in
No,
Ukraine.
no. This happened. It was one of the, I think, 2 places in the world. I think us and the Russians, or maybe it's still under Soviet control. Who knows? Basically, a it was a biological weapon or some form of a. It was something that's basically extinct, but there's only 2 known places, and they had a blowout, and they're very optimistic that nothing escaped.
Very optimistic. Okay.
It
That's
was
just a
not the
fancy way
fully
of saying-
reassuring statement.
Yeah, it's a fancy way of saying I don't know.
Well, and the other thing too is that there's a lot of oil that is currently under permafrost in Siberia that we'd have a lot of access to. The largest oil reserve in the world is under permafrost in Siberia right now. So
Well, and same thing in Antarctica. Don't forget all the natural gas in the Arctic, underneath the Arctic Ocean.
But here's the thing, Falcon. We can't drill in the South Pole, and we don't want those ice caps melting lest we release King Ghidorah.
Shit.
What?
I have no idea what that means.
That's
I'm
you
having
haven't
flashbacks to Alien versus Predator.
you haven't seen. Well, that might be also be an issue. But yeah, no, the newest Godzilla movie. That's where King Ghidorah, aka Monster Zero, is hibernating.
Oh, okay.
See, what I'm curious about is I would like to know, memes Falcon, if you guys are on board with that blue energy idea, where the opposing argument is to focus on efficiency and cost effectiveness, thus having a more environmentally friendly result.
Oh,
Yeah,
uranium! Uranium
I'm
is the
all-
most. Go on.
I agree with it. Also, I say no more turbofan engines, recips for everybody, and no more automobiles, bicycles for all.
No, nuclear energy all the way.
Well, I was meaning for aircraft. We stop using so many turbofan engines, and go back to old radials. Yeah, they need a little maintenance. Oh well, no big deal. But they burn a whole lot less fuel.
Yeah.
If you have a major mechanical malfunction, or like let's say, okay, during the Second World War, it was frequent it was actually pretty common for P-47 Thunderbolts to fly home with multiple cylinders missing of their 18-cylinder radial engine. You have a fan disc crack on like a Boeing 727 TriStar. Congratulations, it exploded, and and your hydraulic system is now all gone. That actually did happen once.
Wow.
The jets don't handle anything but perfection, and they burn tremendous amounts of fuel.
What do we
I don't
lose
know
on
enough
speed?
about avionics, to be honest.
No, Falcon's in the community. What do we lose out on speed by getting away from like the jet propulsion engines?
Well, exactly. You do lose some with speed. Jets really make sense when you're talking about above 500 miles per hour, and they make a tremendous amount of sense. Actually, the scramjets make the most sense, but yeah, turbofans too. When you're talking supersonic, but in order to get through the sound barrier, because that transonic region where some parts of the airplane are supersonic and some are subsonic, that's extremely unstable and very difficult to get through. So you need a tremendous amount of power to do that. Well, that's a lot of fuel, and to maintain supersonic speed without using an afterburner, what's called super cruise, there's only been 2 airplanes that did that. The SR-71, not the SR-71, the F-22 Raptor, and Concorde.
I was gonna say,
Concorde burned so much fuel that there was not a snowball's chance in hell it'd ever even break even.
Well, Concords also kind of started exploding, which was
Yeah, that
not
too.
really good for business.
Well, the,
A Mach 2 airframe is hard to make. Hell, the SR-71 had to be pure. It had to be a titanium airframe. Just not the stress, not incorporating the stress, the heat alone, the aluminum would have melted.
That makes sense.
All I know is when I fly down to the Boeing or 747 or that style aircraft I typically fly on, they're typically going from between like 525 to like 650, 620, something like that. That's around the transit speed. And I don't think folks at this point are really like, if it was a 2 or 3% decrease and like the costs went down, people could probably justify that. But if you're talking about a 20 to 30% like decrease in or increase in flight time, I don't think the market would really bite on that at this point.
Well, I think 20% you could actually make that work because you'd go from burning about 150 to 200 gallons an hour to burning half that.
Well, there is an argument that what you could do is if you had a lot less actual maintenance and like less complicated things, if you could increase the efficiency of turnaround of planes and airports, like if somebody could just get there, you had a streamlined security process. They only need to get there like an hour before there. They go through their security, they check in, they show up, and literally their plane is ready to go. And you minimize the delays. So that actually does kind of go into the blue efficiency thing that you guys were saying, right?
We'll also need smaller airplanes to make that work. The hub and spoke model where the A380 and the 747 were built for, that doesn't work when you do that kind of.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but
Basically, you go from one small airport, like let's say I wanted to fly out of Savannah to Seattle. I have to go from Savannah to Atlanta, just a little hop flight, and then from Atlanta to Seattle. And if I wanted to go to a different airport, even if it's the same length runway and same airplanes, and the demand is there, I'm going to get off on a small plane to go to Atlanta, and then get on a real big plane like a 747 to go to Seattle, and then to get on another small plane to go to that other city. Instead of from Savannah just taking one airplane, a direct route.
Yeah, people don't like connecting flights.
Yeah, I hate connecting flights. I'll pay more for a direct flight because I've had so many friends get their bags lost. I actually had a coworker coming from India who they lost his bags. 23 hours of travel, and they lost his bags in Singapore.
Oh yeah. Well, because of flight time, better planning, and the fact that you just use smaller airplanes for that, and smaller airplanes are cheaper and burn a lot less fuel. Direct routes are becoming more and more common. Airplanes like the 787 are breaking that old model.
Yep. Well, it is getting quite late, and I have to pee. So,
dude, real men piss themselves.
I thought you peed into bottles.
No.
That's only on a road trip with your in-laws' kids.
Yeah.
Oh.
Dude, you'll love what I do. I took straight from cave dive. I have a condom catheter and a pee valve.
Arthur, I think we should end the stream.
Yeah, I think it's about time to do that because if we were monetized, we'd be demonetized. So thanks for calling in though. That was a lot of fun. And we'd love to talk to you guys again.
Absolutely.
Appreciated.
Don't forget to hit that.
It's more fun for me to have ideas thrown at me that are that contradict my own.
Yeah.
And have them be rational.
Yep. That's always fun. So don't forget to hit that like button and share. And if you haven't hit that subscribe button, do it right now. If you have hit it, don't hit it again because it'll unsubscribe you. So until Monday, I'm going to say goodnight, and I'm going to hit that stop streaming button.
Anchor of justice!